Invincible Season 3 isn't good. However, it's not bad either. It's just decent. Overall, it is definitely a downgrade from the previous seasons. In this video, I'll be looking at all the problems that Season 3 has that makes it a mediocre season. I'll be keeping this video completely objective. I'll be looking at objective problems with the story, which will consist primarily of inconsistencies and contrivances. With that, a mathematic formula will be used to determine the overall quality of the season. Keep in mind that objective quality is separate from subjective enjoyment. In other words, you don't have to let these problems stop you from enjoying. In episode 1, Mark somehow fails to stop the Declaration of Independence from being stolen, or save Rex in a timely manner, despite having super speed. For most of the scene, he's just standing there. If he isn't on screen, the show acts like he doesn't exist. Later, Dr. Seismic catches all the superheroes despite some of them being able to fly. You're telling me not a single one managed to not get captured? This is something that should have been shown. How did Dr. Seismic find all of them? How did he not find Mark and Eve? Why didn't he target them even though they're the ones who stopped him the first time? It also turns out that the eggs that the heroes were trapped in could have been easily broken the whole time by either Immortal, Mark, or Eve. We know all of them hit harder than the cyborgs. Mark is stronger than the cyborgs at this point. Eve was able to hurt Conquest even with her restrictions. Immortal was able to damage Omni-Man and the cyborgs couldn't. This episode ends with Mark being character assassinated by a contradiction in his character writing. Mark both believes that people can change and that they can't at the same time, which obviously doesn't make any sense. Oliver later confirms in this season that Mark believes his father can change despite doing far worse things than Darkwing or Sinclair. Those two literally just saved the world. I understand his hesitation with Sinclair because it is personal, however the same cannot be said for Darkwing. He has no reason to think that they shouldn't be given another chance to change, especially when it goes against his established beliefs. I think this only happened because the writer wanted the Rogue Mark plot. I understand Mark getting angry at Cecil for not trusting him, and almost killing him, despite Cecil not intending or wanting to kill him. His mutual distrust and anger towards Cecil makes sense. However, this only ever happened because Mark tried to force Cecil to ruin any chance of Darkwing and Sinclair ever bettering themselves, which, as already pointed out, goes against his character. Mark isn't just saying things that go against his beliefs to win an argument, which is something that people do. He's actually making choices and committing to actions based on these conflicting beliefs. Mark was also able to beat the cyborgs way too easily. Cecil confirmed Omni-Man is still stronger than Mark at this point, and Omni-Man struggled with these things far more than Mark does. If Mark struggled against the cyborgs as much as he should have, he wouldn't have escaped the White Room, which means the Guardians wouldn't split up and Rex most likely wouldn't have died. Episode 2, Komodo Dragon, who is bulletproof, is physically overpowered by these criminals who wear skulls, I don't remember their names, which means they also have to be bulletproof. Then we are shown that they aren't, which means it is impossible for them to take down Komodo Dragon the way that they did. They only won because the plot needed Cecil to live. Another problem this episode has is the lack of proper nuance in my opinion. Whenever Mark tells anyone what happened with Cecil, they fully agree with him without ever getting any pushback or him getting into any disagreements. This show is clearly leaning towards Cecil being the one in the wrong, going as far as for him to refer to himself as a bad person for what he is doing. This isn't an objective criticism, but I did want to mention it. In episode 4, there's an alternate variant of Immortal, and nothing about him is really consistent. Conveniently, he has never considered finding someone to replace him before he went crazy. He is only seeking someone to replace him after he has committed atrocities that he knows is wrong. It brings into question why he just didn't stop committing atrocities. Also, Mark resorts to killing Immortal way too quickly. Mark avoids fighting him, and then immediately jumps to killing him. He doesn't fight Immortal and try to beat him into submission, which Mark does with almost every criminal he usually fights. There is no reason he wouldn't try that on Immortal. Later in this episode, Alan goes around freeing people from the prison. He isn't doing this to save them, though. He is actually gathering an army to defeat the prison guards. An army that he doesn't need. Alan can just blast right through them, which he does after all of this anyways. He knows none of their weapons can hurt him. He should be rushing to save Nolan as quickly as possible. He only gets there in time because the executioners take as long as possible to kill Nolan. I think this only happened so that Alan had an excuse to find Battle Beast. It is also convenient that Battle Beast just so happened to have been captured off-screen and brought to this exact prison at the same time Alan and Nolan are here. I don't know how they even managed to capture him, given that Battle Beast is arguably the most powerful character in Invincible. He took on the most powerful Viltrumite after gutting himself, and that fight lasted days. This isn't to mention that Battle Beast appears not to have a scratch on him when Alan finds him. It also isn't explained why Battle Beast just doesn't break himself out. Also, the prison guards aren't running away for some reason. They know their weapons don't do anything. Despite this, they just keep shooting until they get ripped apart. The Flaxons were believable because they knew when to run away. The prison guards have no self-preservation and only serve to waste screen time. In episode 5, Multipulse says that Kate should have come with him, even though he left abruptly without her knowledge. Another problem with this episode is that when Mark is told about the Order, he doesn't even consider helping to stop them. For some reason, the only options acknowledged are to arrest Titan or release Multipole. Stopping dangerous criminals is what Mark does, but he doesn't even think about trying to stop the Order. In episode 7, Oliver flies to the first Mark he sees, even when he knows there are many other Marks flying around who will kill him. There's also this filler scene with this ghost where nothing of any importance happens. This episode also gives us a look at some new characters, one of which is Tech Jacket, who beat a Mark variant all by himself, something that not even the Guardians could do. Despite being this powerful, we have never seen him before this. Tech Jacket would have been very influential in earlier battles. It is also confirmed in the next episode that Cecil can contact Tech Jacket, as he is with Cecil when he finally shows up to defeat Conquest. From what I understand, this happened due to legal issues, but it is still a problem. Also, Conquest somehow found Mark on an entire planet. It would have made more sense for Conquest to lure Mark out by destroying things. Speaking of Conquest, in the final episode, Eve never destroys Conquest's metal arm, even though she could do so very easily. I have heard the argument that Eve needs to know what something is made of to be able to manipulate it. And since it is most likely made of an alien metal, Eve does not know what it is made of and couldn't manipulate it. However, if I'm not mistaken, it is established in Eve's special episode that she can tell what something is made of just by looking at it, meaning there is no reason she couldn't have destroyed Conquest's metal arm, which may have changed the tide of the battle, which would result in Mark not finding out about Eve's restrictions. Also, why doesn't Cecil have any sound trap for Conquest? An orbital laser didn't work on Omni-Man, but Cecil thinks an explosion will kill Conquest, who Cecil thought could be even stronger than Omni-Man. Better yet, why doesn't Cecil just install a chip in Conquest's head like he did with Mark? You'd be able to control Conquest far easier that way. You could even take this a step further and amputate his limbs. You clearly have the technology if you can surgically remove the chip from Mark's head. Cecil should have done all of these things rather than what he ended up doing. That is all the objective criticism of Season 3, however I wanted to mention one more thing. Mark tells Oliver that he was right and that he is going to kill anyone who threatens his family. However, what Oliver did was very different. Oliver wasn't killing threats. He killed one of the Mahler twins even after they had surrendered. Once again, this isn't an objective criticism, and it's just something I wanted to mention. In conclusion, Invincible Season 3 is a 5.35 out of 10. And if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.